welcome back to Pour It On. It's been a busy January. I think we were all sort of overcome by events. I myself just got back from Mexico last night. I was down there for a music festival, trying to rig my A game, but my partners here sound both a little bit stuffy, so maybe we're all slightly less than 100%. But let's check in real quick. I want to hear how you guys are doing. How are things out on the West Coast, Sean?
Did he mean you're a stuffy guy?
I don't know. Right. Do I
I
sound
thought
stuffy?
so Ben sounds stuffy. You sound like I've heard some sniffles from you.
I,
Are you okay?
He's an emotional guy, Chris.
Sniffles? I don't know what you're talking about. We've been talking for a half hour.
Just check in. Check in for the love of God.
Checking in from the West Coast where it's a beautiful day in the desert, climbing the mountains, getting ready. I mean, my brother's here, who's been a guest on if you've come this far, for a golf tournament this week, where he'll be caddying. And, just another day in paradise.
That sounds pretty good.
Good to be with you, fellas.
Love it.
Ben, how about you?
I'm doing well. Happy mid-January to you both. Good to be back recording with you. All is good from frigid New York City. I am very far from the desert, Sean. It's cold out there, you know.
You and me both. And particularly having just left beautiful eastern Mexico. Boy, it's a shock for sure. All right, well let's dig in here. I think I alluded to this topic a while back, but we've not. This is all still pretty cold for you guys, but I was recently reminded of what I think is a great quote from Henry Ford. And the quote is, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And I want to talk about this because this notion, what it means to me, it's certainly not just a motivational poster slogan, right? It's, I don't think anyone's going to deny that our mindset will, of course, always be influenced by our reality. But I think it cuts both ways too. I think our mindset can also inform our reality. I rarely do I think it's the biggest driver. I think things like luck and skill and teamwork and other relationship factors, are always awfully important. But I do think our mind has a lot to say about how we're going to eventually walk through whatever situation or part of life that we're in. So that is the topic for today. So let me first start out by asking two questions. One, are you two familiar with this quote? And second, whether or not you are, when you first heard it, did you think, yeah, that's exactly how it works? Or did you roll your eyes at the great Henry Ford's platitude?
I heard it recently. It was with my son, and he rolled his eyes. And that's what happens now, right? But I didn't, and I don't. I think a lot about mindset. I think a lot about it in real time with you guys as we record. I think it's a powerful thing that is remarkably challenging for me to do for myself. It is not nearly as hard for me to do for others, where I could hear that quote and say they're both true. Like pick the one where you can, pick the one where you will lean into that. But for me, it's a little bit harder. And so, Chris, I can't list all these great fun examples where, because I had the can mindset, I moved myself to that outcome. I do believe that that's a factor. I really do. But most of the time, it's I point to the other factors because I worked that hard and I triple checked and I got up early and all these other measurable things. But the mindset sometimes has to be kind of dragged along with me. So I think it's a great topic.
John, thoughts?
So my first reaction was, are we talking about this because it's like a New Year resolution thing? You can or you can't? I mean, I was curious.
No, I'll be honest. I mean, I think the reason it came up for me, I don't remember how it crossed my radar or how I was reminded of it. But I do think, I'm in the middle of a career switching process. And we'll talk about this later, too, because, we don't all get to just decide which of those mindsets we're going to be in, right?
Yeah.
Because, those also depend on a number of factors. But I was like, there are moments in any sort of career transition where you start to wonder, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was, right?
Mm.
And so so it's got nothing to do with New Year's. It's just coincidence that it's coming about during the new year.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, yes, I've heard the quote, and I subscribe to that. I think in a big way. I think about it sometimes in terms of things like, could I fix my engine of my car if I had to? That would be a huge lift for me. And I want to say it's because I don't want to. I'm not interested in. But I just think if I put enough effort into it, and I thought, well, I could do that. I could read the books. I could watch the YouTube videos. I could do this, and I could figure it out. I believe that's the case for a lot of things. And so, what's the energy? What's the mindset? You know, but I could easily. I can't do that. I can't do an engine. and there's a lot of people who'd be like, that's for sure. So I think about that all the time. It's like the other thing recently is cooking. I really don't have a lot. My wife is a great cook. I really don't have a lot of interest in cooking. And, I always do the cleanup, but I'm helping more with the actual cooking. And I'm trying some baking things and whatever. And it's like, again, it's like, oh, can I do this? Yeah, I can do it. Do I want to? Usually that's what it comes down to. But I really believe that if your mindset is you can. Now, the other thing is, real quick, you might not get it perfectly. So again, is it about the destination or is it about the journey? So if you think you can and you put the energy into doing it, making a cake, and it comes out like shit, I still thought I could, and I did all the right steps.
Yeah.
Kinda. I might have missed a few, but it wasn't like I went in thinking, well, I can't do this. You know what I mean? And so even though it didn't go perfectly well, I had a mindset that I could do it, and so try again.
Yeah. Well, and that goes to all the other ingredients of success, right? Like I mean, thinking you can fly isn't going to stop gravity, right?
Right.
So it's not, and this is where I think it's helpful to really, before we get into whether or not this whole notion and this mantra or whatever you want to call it works, I want to be clear on what the quote is and what it isn't. I'm guessing you'll both agree that this is not some like law of physics or universal truth. It's a pithy heuristic, right? It's like a mental shortcut. Something occurred to me today, and you guys may chastise me for this, but I got to bring up a movie scene. There's got to be a movie reference, right? Are you guys big Monty Python fans?
I wouldn't say big, but you put one in front of me and I'll laugh for 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well,
yeah.
I used to be a really big Monty Python fan, and there's a scene from the movie Life of Brian. This is where Brian is mistaken for the savior, right? And the scene is at the Sermon of the Mount, right? And Brian is with some other sort of hooligans at the far back of this crowd. And of course, Jesus giving the Sermon on the Mount doesn't have a microphone, and so they're just listening closely. They can't hear everything, and because they're at the back of the crowd, when Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers," they hear, "Blessed are the cheesemakers." And one woman scoffs and goes, "What's so special about the cheesemakers?" And a man quickly mansplains to her. He says, "Well, obviously it's not meant to be taken literally. It refers to any manufacturers of dairy products." The reason I bring that up is because I get grumpy sometimes at the proliferation of frameworks and people saying, "Oh, if you do the 4 F's and the 7 S's and everything else." I think it's important for us to be like, okay, there may be some truth to this, but it's not universal. Sean, the reason you can't bake just because you decide you want to and you think you can, I mean, you got to practice, right?
Right. Yes. Right. And have a mindset, right? And have a mindset that I can do it. And if the first cake didn't turn out well, I can do this. And so you go again. You give it another go.
Well, also, Sean, add flour and eggs next time. Because it feels like you might have been missing a couple things.
Yeah. I appreciate your drive.
Now I'm breaking a real rule. But isn't it Monty Python and the Holy Grail with the Black Knight? Is that what
Oh
Yeah.
the
yeah,
black?
yeah.
Yeah.
So he thinks he's gonna win, where he keeps cutting off limbs.
Yeah.
I'll
Yes.
beat you. Right.
Oh,
He
I'll bite your leg off. Yeah. Come on.
yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah.
so he had a real attitude, a
He did.
can-do attitude.
He did. He
Yeah.
did. He never gave up.
Tis
Yeah.
but a scratch, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think where I have fault with the whole line of thinking, Chris, is only when people exclude all the other factors that go into success and say if you had the right mindset, you can do anything, which is like it works for kids who haven't developed a skill set, a direction yet. Like we're setting up an expectation for them that in this big world, if you apply yourself and you have proper support and you're a good human being, yes, that's true. You could become an amazing piano player, even if
Yeah.
you can. We don't know that you can or can't because you got to try. But why couldn't that be possible? At this stage of life, with all the realities around it, it's like, yeah, I want to become a great piano player. Like I could. I don't know that I'll be good at it. I don't have the patience for it. But it's always just, no. That's just negative talk. You can do anything. I'm like, okay, well, so now I'm a great piano player and mountain climber and baker, right? Like all of these things. It's like, well, what about time? What about skill set? I think that they're not mutually exclusive. It is absolutely true that some people have skills learned or innate that are different than others, and that factors into it too. But if you have a crappy mindset, you're you're definitely not going to get it
Right.
done.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I think, if we go with this assumption that we all agree that it's a heuristic and that's it, I mean, there is some biology to this. I don't think Ford knew that there was biology to it, but I will say, and I've done a bit of a deep dive on this, but a few years after he died, these two scientists, Maruzzi and McGowan, sort of mapped this out. They discovered that there's this tiny bundle of nerves in our brainstem. It's like literally an on switch for our thinking. And some of the examples of this that I've read have been like, okay, you're thinking about buying a red Jeep. Before you started thinking about buying a red Jeep, you might not have ever noticed red Jeeps on the highway or whatever. But now that you're thinking about it, because of
Hmm.
what this like reticular activating system does, every time you see a red Jeep, that's all you notice. It's the thing that stands out. And I think it was described by something I read as if this system, this reticular activating system, is like a bouncer at an exclusive club, which is your brain. And get this, I'm going to blow your mind here. There's like 2 million bits of data trying to get inside your brain every single second. The bouncer stands there at like the velvet rope, and he only lets in about 130 bits, right?
Mm.
So now the question is, okay, well, who tells the bouncer what to let in? I think that's what's interesting to me. Is like, do we have some say over what's going to consume us, or what we're going to worry about, or what we're going to bake tomorrow, right?
Can I get clarity on something though? Do we have to do research now on our topics when we bring them? Now that
No.
you're doing like
No.
science, and I mean, just for Ben and are you changing the game up a little bit?
I am not. I am not. This was me obsessing, right? Okay, so I thought it was really interesting. And by the way, I don't know shit about the brain, so
Well, I mean, Sean, the other way to put it is that we don't have to because we know shit.
I knew that was coming.
The other thing I'm thinking is that some friends of the pod are going to be listening to this episode and saying, "No, let me get this straight. You only get 130 bits allowed in. That's all you get, and you guys reserve some for obscure references to the life of Brian and the Holy Grail. That's how you chose. You're wasting your bits."
I think the risk for us is that the listeners will remember the life of Brian bit, but nothing else that we say. That's the
Right.
risk.
I would take that bet.
Yeah. Okay. But when you think about like points in your life where maybe you were consumed by something or weren't focused on the right things, do any of those examples come to mind for you all?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're in the career transition that you referenced. It's tough in those moments to stay in the right mindset, I think. And there have been times when just because my path was from a small newspaper to a small, medium sized one to a bigger one, and then to the national staff of the AP. It looks like a linear path in retrospect. At the time, there are all kinds of false starts.
Yeah.
Didn't get responses back. Got rejections that didn't make any sense to me. Um, I'm like, I'm never gonna move on. You know, I can't see what they're looking for, and so yeah, there are times when the mindset totally turned. Like this is not going to work out. And then that's the thing is you don't need all these people to say yes. You really only need one. You need one boss, you need one colleague, you need one partner to say, I see something special here. And then for those of us that are really tough on ourselves, we're like, oh my gosh, I got so lucky. You see what I mean? Like as soon as the
Yeah.
good things happen, you don't ascribe it to your mindset and your effort. You ascribe it to some outside factor. Well, you know, would those things have gone faster if I had been like, it's cool. That wasn't the right one. Moving on to the next one. Staying positive. Here we go. Maybe they would have gone faster. Maybe they wouldn't have. I do think the journey would have been more enjoyable. That's the part that I think is really true. It's like if you can really focus on your mindset, it might not have a determinative role in the outcome, but it certainly will have a bigger role on the path there.
It's great. I think this question is one, maybe not asking it this way, but is one that I am asking myself for in a number of different ways these days. One is I'm 62, so what can or can't I do anymore? It's like, oh, you're 62. You can't dress like this, or you can't run down a mountain, or you can't, you can't. I think about it sometimes. It's like, okay, well, is that true? And then the other one would be, looking at new projects. Can or can't I do these projects, and how are they going to go? And it's really important to me to think about when you choose to do something and you're doing things towards the goal or the project or whatever you want to call it. Are you honest with yourself to say, okay, I am doing it, I can. And am I doing those things and those activities that are contributing to the can, or, am I just wasting time and telling myself those are the right activities? And that turns into can't, didn't, whatever. You know what I mean? It's because sometimes it can get lost in those activities that, are really contributing to accomplishing something, and confusing myself with activities that aren't. But I say they are.
I don't want to get into whether or not this has led to your interest in baking. But
You know what? I'm going to tell you what led. So I saw this. So by the way, I read Ina Garten's memoir. It's very good. So I recommend it. Actually, as an outstanding business book. And I saw this recipe for brownie pudding, and I'm like, I'm making that shit because it looked unbelievable. So I made it, and it was really good. I'm sure it wasn't Ina Garten good, but it was really good. And that's what, like, oh, I can make shit. I can make it because I like to eat it.
that's totally reasonable. I thank you for sharing that.
All right.
Let's go back to this notion. I love that you brought up the joy and whether or not you want to do something or not. But I want to go back to this idea that it's not just a matter as simple as saying, okay, I'm going to go to the optimistic headspace and get away from the pessimistic headspace.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, we're trying not to bring up too much in the way of sports, but I think about like a hitter in a baseball slump, right? When you go through an 0 for 20 slump, things start to look differently, right? The
Yeah.
pitches look faster, the plate may look smaller, whatever. And now instead of thinking about getting a hit or hitting it to the right part of the field, you're thinking about the strikeout.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, how do I avoid the strikeout? So it's not a mind over matter thing, but when you think about where you want to, have your mindset live, do you think you have a lot of control over that?
Well, I go back to, kind of honesty with yourself. So in that example, why am I not performing at my art? What is going wrong with me? I'm in a slump. Why am I not performing? And can you take a breath to do a self-assessment and say, well, what am I doing? What am I doing? I mean, particularly if you call it a slump, which means I've done this work before and I've done it well.
Yeah.
What's going on now? There's been plenty of those examples for me, whether it be doing something athletically or doing something in work, where it's like, wait, why isn't this working this time?
Mm-hmm.
And can I be honest and say, am I doing the right things? All those things that you can assess to say whether or not you're performing, and can you be honest with yourself?
Yeah.
I think that's a big one. For me, it's a big
Mm-hmm.
one. Is to say, am I kidding myself, or, it's clear why I'm not doing it, and I'm just not choosing to.
I think if you do have the right mindset and you put the work in for whatever that is, it's so important to see results to keep it going. And so in the case of the baseball slump, you're putting the work in. It did work before. You can't understand it. That's why those sample sizes are crappy, because probably in the span of a performance, 20 times up is not a slump, right? It's, because you could go 14 for 20 a month later. It doesn't mean you're the best hitter either. But I think, in that example, Chris, I think about watching the leaders of those teams, the coaches of those teams, when they're asked about their player slump, and they almost always stay positive. They're like, we see a lot of good things. We see the work behind the scenes. It continues to, have put some good approaches, like all these things that are true, even though the fans are like, what are you talking about? Struck out 3 times. Like, I don't want to care, because somebody has to keep, A, probably is seeing those underlying things, but B, keep the mindset going for him and for the player. And I think that that's a great mark of leadership, is that if you can't control the outcome and you can't control the unknowns, we can at least control our narrative around it. I think I told you guys once, I don't remember if we said this in one of our recordings, but I was having dinner with a great friend in DC about how things were going. And he's like, man, your narrative sucks. And he didn't mean my narrative of the narrative of me. He's like, my self-narrative. You're describing a pretty dour set of things happening, and I'm listening to them, and I could easily frame them as that work. This is not yet working, but will, right? Meanwhile, you've got all these other things going on here. And so, well, what difference does it make? Well, the difference is, as I said earlier, as you're going along, if your narrative is much more positive and upbeat, whether or not that leads to a hit the next time at bat or not, that day still mattered, right? Did you feel crappy that day, or did you feel like you were working the problem that day? It's much better, I think, to have the right mindset. I do think that the more you do that and get it going, the more likely good things are to happen. They just are.
Oh, if you break up the heuristic, and what is how do you define that? I mean, you've used it a couple times.
A mental thumb rule.
Okay. If you believe you can't, I think you're not gonna. Right? I mean, that's true, right? I mean, if I can't do it, I'm not gonna do it. I mean, I'm not gonna, right? I mean, that's pretty clear. The thing is that if you believe you can, you may not always. But are you okay? Again, another heuristic. Are you okay with the journey?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have an example of something where you believe I can't do this
and did it anyway,
and it happened?
You can find a million of those, and you can find a million of things you thought you could do and you didn't, right? And that's why it's a heuristic and not some universal law.
Yeah.
Going back to the baseball thing, we can debate what duration of poor hitting constitutes a slump, but the reality is, let's take another position. How many times have you seen a relief pitcher get up there and can't find the fucking strike zone for the life of them? Can't. And it's so much of that's between the ears too, right? And so I guess in that sense, what you brought up, Sean, is like, okay, well, let's figure out, and I think this is what this conversation is about. Like, when we're in the I think that I can't frame of mind, how do we get out of it? And in the case of, the pitching coach is a good place to start. The manager is a good place to start. Where do we turn to get out of that? Where do we go and find a reminder that, oh, actually that thing that we're struggling with right now, we've done it before and we can do it, and we can do it again and again. but do we need, is it our partners? Is it our podcast partners? Like it's
Hmm.
some, because my guess is very few people can work out of those slumps without any support.
I agree.
No, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that patience and practice are the underrated elements of this. They just become so hard to do as you get busy and you get later in life. I think I'm a pretty good cook now. I wasn't, I was okay, but certainly since I became a dad and moved out on my own, I had never really baked anything, and now I'm not bad at that either. I don't do it as much, but it comes from the patience and the practice of it. So there are extensions of that I'd love to do, and I think I could if I break them down as like practice this, study this, get better at this. But that's the rub for me. It's not so much the mindset, can do it, can't do it. It's like, how much do I really want it? To me,
Yeah.
that's the third part
Yeah.
of it. How much do I really want it? And just be honest. Just be honest.
Yeah.
Like we were talking earlier about my writing another book, a different kind of book, and I'm like, I could blame it on the industry. I could blame it on the whims of people saying yes or no to manuscripts, or you didn't triple space in the right place. The reality is that it's up to me.
All right.
Do I really want it, or is it just a nice thing to talk about? So far, it's just been the latter. It's fun because I wrote one, but I could do that. I could do that. Now, then I have to sell it, which is another matter. But it's totally up to me. And so, like, why haven't you? Well, because I haven't wanted it bad enough.
Right. Yep.
And so, if I said as a mindset, this is the year, and I start talking to you guys about it, start drafting, I bet you'd say, "Wow, your energy is awesome about that. Your mindset's great." Yeah, because I got started,
Right.
and I'm doing things. So that's kind of where I am on the whole mindset question. Is like either do it or don't do it and be okay with it. But the middle ground, I might. What are we doing?
Are you interested? By the way, are you interested in the brownie pudding recipe at all?
I think you should drop it in the show notes.
He's a cook. That's a no. He's giggling.
He's bragging about his
I know he is.
kitchen skills.
Right.
Yeah, Sean, I always wanted to put something in the liner notes, so I'll drop a recipe in too.
Okay, so you guys have both brought this up, this idea of mindset as we age, and then the question of whether or not how much you want to do something becomes a bigger factor, right?
Mhm.
Because with each day we have less time. So, I mean, you talked about baking and cooking an awful lot for this show, but but how do you prioritize the things that you do want to do and you think you can do? I mean, I would love to learn how to putt before I die.
You need help. I mean, to your point about help, then yeah, you're not going to do that you're not going to do that on your own. I mean, I'll always go with what brings you joy. I mean, and I think something that's challenging is good. I was thinking about, what is it? Yoda says there is no try, there's only do. Right? I mean, is that a heuristic too? That's another heuristic that's always playing in my head. I'm going to be using that word like every day now. But that's another one that plays in my head, right, Ben? I mean, it's not, there is no try, there's do. But as I age, I mean, I still want challenge, and I don't want to be defined or limited by my age. Okay. I mean, there may be comes a time when I physically can't do things, but that's not now.
Yeah, I love the idea of focusing on not trying but doing. The story that comes to mind is there's here in Brooklyn, if you go down towards the Brooklyn Bridge, there's a narrow 2-lane road that runs right behind Brooklyn Bridge Park. And one time I was going down there and there was construction on that road. It was kind of hard to see where it was. But basically, one lane wasn't moving because all the other lane was like weaving in behind the stopped truck, right? And there was nobody there signing. So obviously, you need somebody there to say 10 cars go, stop, you take. And we just kept waiting. And finally, I got out of the car and walked down the median as cars were passing, and I stopped the traffic. And got up to some like guy in a red Camry. And I'm like, stop, and then I pointed at the car in this lane. I'm like, move, go, 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 right? Until the person driving my car caught up and I got in and kept going because we just would have sat there. I'm like, it was badly planned and it was somebody's like, when I hear that phrase, somebody ought to do something.
You're right.
That's what really gets me, Chris.
Right.
I don't say, yeah, somebody should. I'm like, well, who? Who's the somebody? Is it you or is it me?
Yeah.
Nobody else is going to help. So that I find very motivating and the action-oriented mindset. And that helps me with prioritization. And I'm like, okay, that was a little risky. I mean, the guy could have run me over, or somebody said, "Hey, I don't see an orange vest on you. You're not official." But something had to get done. But there's all kinds of other things that I don't get done in a given day, and I could be better with my time. I could be better with my discipline. I think that stage of life has a lot to do with that. So I hear Sean say, like, I don't want to get into can't mode. There's all these things I can do. I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, what's that going to take? You know what is really helpful? And Chris, you said this once already. It's like, don't put yourself in a position where you're the only one doing the pep talk.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part, all these frameworks you talked about. There's so many frameworks. It's like, you know what? Simplify this. What do I want to do? What do I control? Get up and do it. And then when you're human and you don't want to get out of bed, or you're having a lull, or you're beating yourself up because your souffle didn't rise for the ninth time, Sean, or whatever. Somebody else will say, like, I think it's awesome that you're even doing this right now after you did 14 other things today. Don't worry about it. Let's order in and you'll make it again tomorrow. Like that, we all need that in there too.
Yes.
Yeah. We talked about slumps. I think we also know that in different sports or endeavors, we go on hot streaks too, right? And where things are going right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounds like, your career progression for the first, half, 2/3, whatever of your career, Ben, was sort of like how you might envision it, step up, step up, step up. This is going to open up a bigger can of worms, and we don't have to go too deep into this, but like we were all probably, I think, pretty blessed coming out of the womb, right? Like we sort of like were born into a bit of a hot streak by good fortune. And so if you suffer a lot of losses or strikeouts, whatever you want to call it, in early life because you're born into like less than optimal circumstances, how do young people get over that?
I've never thought about being born into hot streak. That's interesting. I'm got to think about that one. But I certainly get your broader point, of the area and the home and the circumstances in which my life began were all, plenty comfortable, certainly by the standards of society, where so many others aren't. I mean, they've surrounded by challenges to their safety and to their health and to their economic status. So, God, I think all those people that you're talking about, they need somebody to give them a chance.
Right.
They need somebody to give them a chance and show them that, you can, you can't are both true. Here's why you're going to lead a you can life. Who's going to be that person or those people around? Because I don't know what the other choice is there. You can't just live on will alone. Like dig deeper. I just don't think that you can.
Yeah. I agree.
You got to get some wins, and sometimes a win is just a teacher saying great job, or sometimes it's a coach putting you in a game when there's another player on the bench who's better than you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly you think, oh my gosh, more is possible, and it doesn't always have to be I can't.
Yeah, I just real quickly, Chris, in my first year of reporting in central Pennsylvania, I mean, the definition of inexperienced. I had to cover this tragedy in a little rural town in our coverage area where a high school girl died in a car accident. And they were figuring out whether alcohol was involved. They were figuring out whether she had been drinking. The cops were investigating. Meanwhile, the town was mourning. And I was writing a lot about this. And I went to a town hall where they were trying to bring some calm to the area, and they were not happy about the press coverage, just really because there was press coverage,
Hmm.
not that the press coverage was wrong. And so they were not happy at me, but I was actually trying to tell a story about how the community was coming together, to deal with this loss and not cover it like an outsider, but cover it through their voice. And I was not wanted in that room. I was not wanted. And I remember as I was leaving, a woman handed me a piece of paper. It was pink and folded over, lined paper, and it was folded over 4 times. And I just got it, and I'm like, oh God, what is this? Like, I don't know that I could take one more thing. And I left, and I opened it up, and it said, "Thank you for what you're doing. Your coverage has affected our community in a really profound way." And so one person saw all that, saw me, and decided I'm going to write a note. And that was, I want to say, like 1993,
Wow.
maybe 94.
Wow.
So, and I still think about that. I still
Yeah.
have it, right? So sometimes it just takes that one person to show you, I see you,
Yep.
Yeah.
keep up.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I think that's a beautiful story and probably a good note to end on. Yeah, it goes back to like 7 good minutes. Give someone a little
Hmm.
praise, a little attention, a little appreciation, because you shouldn't discount that. I mean, I love that. That was 30 plus years ago, and
Hmm.
you still think about it a lot. Any other closing thoughts before we wrap up here, fellas?
I was just curious, Ben, did you get the finger a lot when you were stopping traffic? When you were like, I figured some guy steps out in the middle of the road in New York, New York City could go a lot of different ways.
Well, I've certainly gotten the finger plenty in my life,
Yeah.
and plenty in New York City for no reason whatsoever. Maybe just how I look, but on that day I was getting looks of sheer curiosity, like,
Yeah.
oh, all right, guy got out of the car,
Yep.
got his hand up. I guess I need to stop,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it felt great actually. All right, last story on this is that we a couple of us, we were in our Penn State days, went to see a speaker at the theater, and everybody's just milling about. It was raining, and like, where do we go into, like, when are they going to open the doors? And like, somebody needs to take charge here. And these people kept coming up to my friend Dave and asking him questions. Do you think it's the left door or the right door? Do you think it's this or that? And Dave's like, I don't know. I don't really know. And I'm like, why the hell do they keep talking to you? And Dave turns around, and he had his raincoat said staff on the back because he had this summer job. And I'm like, Dave, you're an idiot. Like, you have power. You actually have the orange vest. Go get us in. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
does it not dawn on you why people are asking you questions?
No, the other thing I just want to say is does Ben, are you doing an event? You want to pitch an event here when we're closing? Aren't you did I see that somewhere? That You're
Oh.
like speaking somewhere?
Yeah. Well, geez, I don't know that it'll still be apt by the time we get this
Yeah.
out, but maybe so. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm speaking at an entertainment conference for it's called INTIX, the International Ticketing Association. And for 47 years, I believe, they put on a conference, and it pulls in basically anybody who's involved in putting on a live event. The arenas, the ticket sellers from Broadway, music, sports, and to learn about how they can all do better at engaging with their audiences, engaging with their fans. And so I'm the closing keynote speaker about how to make audiences care.
Yeah.
With
And when's that
with,
date? When is that?
it is January 29th
Okay.
in Vegas. So I will give an update on a future recording, and a few days in Vegas doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it does hurt. Actually, it hurts a lot.
A lot.
Yeah,
A
you
lot.
guys might have to come find me like Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman in The Last Dance. Ben, your co-hosts are here.
All right, here's how I'm going to wrap this up. You're talking about live events, made me think of this. I, for one, was pretty impacted by the loss of Bobby Weir of the Grateful Dead, and I've been listening to a lot of Dad. I watched, sat on the beach a couple of days ago, watched the 2-hour celebration of his life. And then the other day, I came across this video of Jerry Garcia and Bob Weir on the David Letterman show. And they were both so endearing, as they always were. And they talked about how sometimes I think Dave asked them how a show went. And they said, oh, pretty well, but they don't all go well. Like, and Jerry was like, some of our biggest shows, we've been horrible or whatever. And I bring this up only because, I mean, these are two of the greats, but nobody bats 1,000, right? We're all going to incur losses. And so I think that the takeaway for me from this topic is, appreciate the wins, recognize other people on their wins, whether they're big or small, and try to stay in the positive headspace. So with that, I will let you guys go, sign off. Our listeners, please weigh in. This resonated with you, or if you want to share any of your wins or losses or thoughts on this topic, and pour it on with us. Like the show and follow us, and we'll hope to keep you entertained. We don't promise a lot of answers, do we, fellas? We mostly questions.
We're a curious bunch.
That's the beauty of being the host, Chris.
Right.
You don't have to answer anything.
You got to do scientific research, though, I guess. All of a sudden.
Tune in next time for answers.
Right. Thank you both. Appreciate
Peace
it.
and love.